My small town hero was Max Bentley. Now, who was Max Bentley? He was also known as Maxwell, but would often go by Max, and he was one of 13 children, and the youngest of all 6 boys. His nickname was Dipsy Doodle Dandy from Delisle because of his ability to skate around opponents and his ability with his stick handling. And with these skills, many contemporaries would say that his skills were the same as Wayne Gretzky's was during his era. He had played 12 seasons in the NHL from 1940 to 1954. And in his early life, his father had taught him that if they can't hit you, they can't hurt you. And he had also taught them that milking the cows would give them stronger wrists. Now, Max had played for the Drumheller Miners and also the ASHL before he had started his professional career. And the photo on the side is him and 5 out of 6 of the brothers that played for the Drumheller Miners all on the same team at one point. And after he had played for those teams, he decided he wanted to try out. So he tried out the Boston Bruins and the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Bruins believed he was too small to play, as he was only 5'9" and 158 pounds. And the Canadiens thought he looked sick and should see a doctor. So he decided to take their advice, and he had discovered he had a heart condition. Now, his journey to the NHL. When he was first playing in Rosetown, that's when he had decided to try out for the Bruins, and that's when they had sent him home. So on his way home, he decided to stop at the tryout for the Canadiens, and their manager told him to look at seeing a doctor because he looked so sick. That's when he found out he has a heart condition. When he had found that out, his doctor had told him that if he didn't give up hockey, that he would be dead in less than a year. So instead of taking the advice of his doctor, he continued to play, and he had played 3 more years of hockey until he got to play his first professional game in the AHL. And during that time was when he got the attention of the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, the Blackhawks liked how he looked as a player, but they decided to send him down to their farm team in Kansas City, the Plymores, to develop a little more. But when he was sent down, he was super discouraged. He was talking about quitting and giving up hockey, because there are people that get sent down to the farm teams that don't really get to play in the NHL. And he thought he would be one of them. But they decided to tell him to persevere and not give up, and after only being down there for a week, he was called up because of the injuries that they had sustained to players. And after he was called up, he wasn't sent down again. And then his first few years with the Blackhawks. So only 3 seasons into his NHL career, he had managed to finish 3rd in scoring, while his older brother Doug got to finish 1st. And after that, he quickly became known for his drive to the net, his aggressive play, and his ability to constantly stay moving. During then, he had served 2 years in the Canadian Army in World War II, and in 1943, he had joined the Canadian Infantry Corps. So while he was there, he was briefly stationed in Victoria, and he played for their Victoria Navy team. And then the following 2 years after that, he was stationed in Calgary. And while he was stationed in Calgary, he played for the Calgary Currie Army team. And that team was a part of the Canadian Military Leagues. So during the 1943-44 season with them, he had led their league in goals and points. Now, right before he had joined the military, he had won the Lady Byng Trophy, and right after he had gotten back, he had won the Hart Trophy. So the Lady Byng Trophy is presented to a player who has exhibited the best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with a high standard of playing ability. So he was presented this trophy as he had only received 1 penalty during the entire season, making him voted the league's most sportsmanlike player. And the Hart Trophy is awarded to the most valuable player on his team, and it is voted by members of the Professional Writers Association. So he was awarded the Hart Trophy for his exceptional performance, as he had led the league in scoring twice in a row during the 45-46 season and the 46-47 season. He was also a part of one of the biggest trades. So in 1947, he was a part of one of the biggest trades of that time. Himself and rookie Cy Thomas were traded to the Maple Leafs, in exchange for 5 players. And those 5 players went to Chicago. It was Bob Goldham, Gay Stewart, Bud Poley, Gus Bodnard, and Ernie Dickens. At that time, both Max and Cy were 2 of the NHL's top scorers. He also got to play in some NHL All-Star games. So he made his first appearance in the NHL's first ever All-Star game in 1947. He also had appeared in the 1948, 1949, and 1951 All-Star games. In 1947 and 1951, he was on the All-Star teams, and in 1952, he was on Team 2. And then during the 1948 and 1949 season, he was on the defending Stanley Cup team, which at that time was Toronto. The All-Star games during that era was normally the Stanley Cup champion, so the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they'd face a team of All-Stars from other teams, similar to what it is today. So during the first All-Star game in 1947, he had scored a goal during their 4-3 win against Toronto, and he'd also scored a goal in the 1948 All-Star game. He was also named the league's post-season All-Star team in first or second place multiple times, and him being selected for the All-Star teams and then All-Star games and being named first or second implied that he was considered to be one of the top players in his era. And then you can see the All-Star teams and which one are the All-Stars from different teams and which one were the Stanley Cups. And in 1952 was him on Team 2 because they had transitioned away from the Stanley Cup team playing a group of All-Stars to just groups of All-Stars playing each other. And then he had won 3 Stanley Cups in 4 years. So he had assisted in the game-tying goal during Game 5 of the 1951 Stanley Cup Final, and that had allowed Bill to score the cup-winning goal. He had also played an important role during the Stanley Cup games with his ability to deke around players and create scoring opportunities that had led them to winning these games. And these are the teams for the 47 to 48, 48 to 49, and 50 to 51 teams that had won the Stanley Cup. And you can see he's the one circled in red, and his first year he was just part of the rest of the team as a player, and then the 49 and 51 season he was an assistant captain for them. And then some of his achievements. So he was a part of the first all-brother line. He was a part of a pony line. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he was a part of the NHL Top 100. So himself, his brother Reg, and Doug, they had all been a part of the first all-brother line, and they made NHL history in 1942 to 43. As that time, the war had really affected the rosters of the teams, so they convinced the head coach to bring up their older brother Reg, and they got to play with him for a little while. And then the pony line was featured with Max, Doug, and Bill, and this line was really famous for their speed, agility, and size compared to other players of the era. That's why it was called the pony line, as they were smaller in stature just like a pony is compared to everyone else. And then he was inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1966, and he was named number 48 on the NHL's Top 100 Best Players list. He was also able to play with Doug one last time. So after he had sustained a back injury while playing for the Maple Leafs, he took a break to recover, and the Leafs didn't think he'd come back because of how long he was gone. So they ended up giving his contract to the New York Rangers. So when the Rangers had kind of found that out, they had offered both Doug and Max the opportunity to play again. So in the summer of 1953, both Max and Doug's contracts were then sold to the Rangers. And during the 53 to 54 season, they both played really well for the Rangers, and both had decided at the end of that season to finish out their NHL careers. But that didn't stop them from playing hockey. They still went on to play hockey together and with their other brothers. It just wasn't to the high intensity like the NHL. And after playing 12 seasons in the NHL, Max had scored 245 goals and 299 assists for a total of 544 points. And then he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1966. and then after the NHL. So after that, he played for the Saskatoon Quakers until he retired during the 1955 to 56 season because of the reoccurring back problems that he had. And during his final game with them, he was able to score his final point in an 8-3 win against the Winnipeg Warriors. And then during 1956, he had decided to join his brother in hockey management, and that's when they had started a new SJHL team in Saskatoon, and it was called the Delisle Gams. And then in 1962, he had went on to coach the Burbank Stars of California's hockey league, and then his nephew and his son also got to play with him then. And he had also tried to attempt to coach the Vancouver Canucks in the WHL, but it was unclear if he actually was able to coach them. And then his family and death. So his whole time, Max grew up on a farm. So if you didn't find him at the rink playing hockey, you could find him at the family farm raising cattle and growing wheat. And there was times where he needed a break from hockey to kind of recoup, and that's where he would go, was back to the family farm. And then also his son, Lynn, he was also a hockey player, and he had played for the Saskatoon Quakers and Los Angeles Blades. And then his death. So he had died in his home on January 18th in 1984 at the age of 63, and he was buried with his parents and siblings in the Delisle Cemetery. And then these are the videos that the NHL and the Leafs had put out for him. And then some fun facts about him. So the Bentley brothers are part of my family through marriage. And Doug, who was Max's brother, he is my great uncle, as he was married to my Nana's sister. And another fun fact, Doug was coaching the Knoxville Knights in the Eastern Hockey League. And when he was coaching, he decided to put his son into the game as they were short players because of injuries. So his son, Doug Jr., was said to be the youngest to appear in a professional hockey league at the age of 14. And then those two photos in the bottom left and the middle are ones that we had taken when we went to Toronto and saw them and their induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And then the bottom right is Max with his wife and then his two sons. And then just some references.